Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, delighted to be talking a second time with writer, comics creator Scott Fogg. Scott, thank you for jumping in and talking with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Excited
My
to be
pleasure.
back.
Great to have you back. Great to have you back. I think we discovered the last time that you are in a part of the world that I spent a lot of time in Tennessee, I do believe. And is this true?
Yes, if that part of Tennessee is the Chattanooga area,
Yes,
then
it is.
yes, I am in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yes, yes. And we were talking about your love of comics, our shared love of comics, and talking about a particular shop there that you're connected to. So in this
Yeah.
episode, delighted to be digging in and talking a little bit more about the creating that you're doing. And I'm sorry that I missed you this year at Heroes Con. Maybe I will connect with you this coming year. I know we were in the same space.
Yeah. Yeah, I am always there. I've been there the last, I don't know, gosh, I guess it's been 10, 11 years. I never miss it.
Yeah. It's a good spot, and I'm sure I'll be back. I imagine that at some point I took a left turn when you were on the right, or there are always people that I miss there, and there's always at least one or two people where I'm like, "Are they here? Where are they?" And it's like I'm following the
Yeah,
lines,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like if this table's here, but I don't know. I don't know if there's like a Harry Potter like Zoom
It
out.
is easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, I think that's a pretty common story with like any kind of convention where you go, you have your list of people you want to hit, and then afterwards you're like, I never saw them. Were
Yeah.
they here?
I was probably right next to you at some point. I didn't realize it. Um,
Exactly. And maybe you walk down the aisle while I was at lunch, and you're just like, there's, I guess he's not here.
yeah, yeah, true enough, true enough. Well, we sort of took a broad view of your career on the last episode, but I know that your current passion project is night care, which
Mhm.
sounds like daddy daycare, but it's not daddy daycare. I love the fact that you're kind of taking on a different aspect of the superhero world because I love superhero comics. Clearly, I'm wearing the Steve Rogers shirt here and all of those things. But very cool book visually and in terms of concept as well. So, where are you in the
Thank you.
journey on this project? Yeah.
So issue three is basically done. We had a successful Kickstarter for it. One of the tiers for backing the book was you were able to be drawn into the book. We had a couple different panels where we left room for some cameos. So those panels need to be, drawn. But beyond
Mhm.
that, book is done. It's been colored, it's been lettered, it's ready to go. So as soon as that part is over, it's off to the printing, and then we'll be rolling into the next. Issue four is already written, basically ready to go. I've got a couple other books, a couple other things I'm working on, but right now the focus is getting issue three of my care into people's hands.
Yeah. And any particular sort of like boiler point for the book, any sort of origin for it that you'd like to share for people that maybe aren't familiar with it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Night Care, it came, oh man, I started writing it or coming up with the idea, I think 5 or 6 years ago. Me and my friend made a trip. We're throwing ideas back and forth, and we came up with this idea um, called Night Care. And Night Care is where all the superheroes and supervillains drop their kids off as they head out into the night.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
the daddy daycare parallel is not that off, not that far off. But this night care is run by um, the backstory of it, which we don't really get into, is like it was established by retired superheroes who were like, we need a place where our kids can be safe, where they can practice their powers or get have friends. Also, we just need someone who could watch our kids and keep them safe while we're doing our thing.
Mhm.
Whether that's rescuing the city or committing a crime or whatever. So like it does like they kind of go like, we don't care who you are. If you're a superhero, supervillain, we're going to leave that outside. Here on the inside, the kids are safe and can be here to figure out who they want to be. So that's where Night Care kind of starts, and then our story. I've often kind of described it as adventures in superhero babysitting,
Mhm.
where you have something happens and the kids have to go head out into the night, and they have their babysitter who's kind of trying to keep them safe as they go through the city trying to find their friend. So yeah, it's an all ages book. I think sometimes that scares people, and they hear all ages and they think that means, oh, it's a kid's book.
Mhm.
I wrote it with a big love of Teen Titans and New Mutants, and these books that, in my opinion, are all ages. Like if you're
Yeah.
a 10-year-old and you pick up a New Mutants book or Teen Titans, you're gonna love it, and you're like, oh, I love this. But then also, because like they're teenagers, people for you to look up to. But then as you grow up and become more of an adult, those stories still resonate, and so that was always kind of the goal of it was to create something that anybody could pick up and read. You could enjoy it and then go, oh, hey, my niece is in town. Here, have this. Literally anybody could pick it up and enjoy it.
I think that's such a great way to talk about all ages, and that's one of the trends or themes that comes up on the show a good bit is that it's not easy to do an all ages book, but I love it when it works well, and I love a book that a young kid can pick up, a middle-aged person such as myself can enjoy, or basically birth through 99 can pretty well engage with. So yeah,
Mhm,
definitely, definitely.
mhm.
As you're going through that process, do you have some beta readers of different ages? Do you have particular creative ideas that you keep in mind?
That would have been a really good idea. That I I am a fast writer and I am very impatient. And
Yeah,
so as soon as I'm done writing it, I'm like, now go make it. Now go make it. Let's
right.
get this out. I'm ready to move on to the next thing. Um, but like the next one I do, whatever's after Night Care, um, I definitely will have. I would like to have some input. I'm actually writing something right now, and I don't necessarily want to get too deep into what it is, but it's
Hmm.
a genre that I'm not accustomed to. So I have my outline, and I am going through that outline, and I'm kind of writing it in a very sparse prose fashion, so I can give it to somebody who I know. I have a couple of friends who the genre they're very into, and I'm like, does this work? I need your guys' input before I spend time breaking it down into panels and doing all that. Does this story work? Does this resonate with you? Because you are going to be a little bit of the target audience,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is it's kind of a new thing for me because almost everything I write kind of selfishly. I kind of write it for me, like what's the book I want to read.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but also, as I get older and I'm starting to write these more and more, it's like, well, I also want to make sure other people can come to the party and enjoy it. So maybe I should invite, some more voices in. Doesn't mean I have to listen to everybody, but definitely kind of like making more educated decisions in those early stages. Um, I would have done that with Night Care had I thought about it, but um, at this point it's too late.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, I understand, and I also relate to that sort of desire to get things out there. I'm very much the same way with some of the things that I work on, where I do want to take the time, and sometimes it's required that I take the time. But that drive to create
Yeah.
is definitely there. And you mentioned a word which, when I'm teaching writing, just warms my soul, which is outlining. I love sort of building that outline
Hmm.
and thinking through different ways of doing that.
Yes.
Is that typically part of your process?
It has become a huge part of my process. When I was first really kind of writing for the first time, writing like when I was in film school, I hated outlines. That was a dirty word. I did not want to hear it. I
Hmm.
wanted to create characters and let them tell their story to me. Um, and that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but like for me, I discovered that I would get to a certain point in the story where I didn't know what should happen next, and my characters weren't talking to me anymore. So I was like,
Hmm.
well, I just wasted all this time. I've written all of this. I don't know what to do next, and what do I do? So I started outlining things as a way to combat writer's block, actually.
Mhm, mhm,
Because I would get those moments of like, I don't know what to do with this. And I found if I could outline it, I might get to a scene where I'm like, I don't know how to write this scene. The scene isn't, I'm not connecting with it yet, but I do know how to write the next one. So I'll come back to, page four. I'm going to go do this cool action scene that's in my head. And in doing that, a lot of times it will kind of unlock that one scene that I've been having trouble with.
mhm.
And since I know the beginning and the end of each of these scenes and these sequences, it's like, well, as long as I start here, then it's fine. I can just go back and I can write that scene and just make sure it ends where that next page is that I've already written. And so now, yeah, especially having come from a film background, and going into comics where you have such a you have a page count and you have to
Mhm,
hit it,
mhm.
for better or for worse. It's like this is a 24-page book. How much story can you cram into 24 pages or however many pages your book is? Um, Being able to break those scenes down and go, actually, that is not important because I need to spend more time here at the end. And so I need to be able to cut this, this, and this. I can make those scenes a little bit shorter, and being able to do that in the outline phase of writing, as opposed to being in the thick of it and falling in love with this scene, and you're going, I can't cut that scene. It's got the best line of the whole script. It's like,
Mhm,
but it
mhm.
it doesn't serve the purpose, you know. And so being able to do that in the outline phase of going, okay, I'm giving this scene one page, I'm giving this scene 2 pages, I'm giving this, helps me kind of recognize the flow of the story, but also like those important moments, like how much do I want to spend page wise on each of these moments? Is this really that important? Like the first book I wrote, there's like a 8-page sequence at the beginning that I love, but as I've gotten older, I've gone back and looked at it and gone like, I could cut that. Like, I wish I had those 8 pages over here in Act Three, but I gave it to this sequence, and so it is what it is. But and that's part of now why I outline everything. I don't want to get there and be like, oh, I could have used those pages here.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah,
outlining is 100% like a part of my process.
that makes sense. Makes total sense. Now you have Night Care issue 4 that's currently on the way. So speaking of outlining, planning, processing, anything about the creative vision for this book that you want to mention?
Um, Good question. So like right now, like I said, like it has been written, and the
Hmm.
interesting thing about having written Night Care is that I it, Night Care, the conception of Night Care was 5 or 6 years ago, and then I wrote those scripts over the course of the next year or so, and it has taken me it has taken us much longer to get these issues out than I ever thought it would. Just due to the nature of Kickstarters or this the whole process. It's like it's taken so long that there have been changes to characters, there have been changes to even story beats because I've had so much time to think about it and rethink about it. Um, One of the characters, the main character, Hummingbird, was a character I based on my daughter 6 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then as I've gotten to know my daughter more over the past 6 years, it changed how I viewed Hummingbird. And so I started changing things. So issue three, there's several pages in there that um, are brand new if you compare. Like no one else would see it, but for me, like, I know this page and this page and this page didn't exist 6 years ago, because I'm like, oh, now that I know a 10-year-old, uh, a 12-year-old girl more now,
Hmm.
I like that rings false. I'm gonna change this. Also, um, you know, she probably doesn't want me talking about it, but she was diagnosed with autism uh, a year or two ago, and so that was something that I was like, oh, I'm putting that into the script. Like I'm just
Hmm. Hmm.
I want that there for this character as well. And so yeah, so Hummingbird went from being like this character, and it she was already this like really kind of like running around, really like sensitive kid, really empathetic, and then in issue three you kind of get that reveal, and it makes complete sense for the character arc, but like being able to actually say it in issue three of like, oh, this is why this and this, it means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to her someday
Yeah.
when she's able to like kind of look back and actually, read them. So that's been really neat is those little moments. And there's other things that I'm sticking to my guns and going, I'm not changing that because
Hmm.
that is the story. Even though I had this idea 5 or 6 years ago, and now over the course of the last 5 or 6 years of superhero movies, my idea isn't as novel as it was to me 6 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, they kind of did that. Oh, and they're kind of doing that too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh well, it's like I can't control that, and like we live in a zeitgeist where we all kind of influence each other. But like 5 or 6 years ago, I had an idea I had never seen before, and now I've seen elements of it in other places, and it's tempting to go, oh well, then I have to scrap the whole thing and
Right, right.
come up with a new reason. But like, nope, I've laid the track for this, and if I do a weird left turn in issue four, it'll ring false. So leave it alone.
Hmm.
But some of those other
Hmm.
little details, I'm enjoying getting to improve upon and insert as we go.
Well, and how very cool to kind of have this memento, this story that's out there that is a connection between you and your daughter. That's a very cool thing as well.
That was, she was always kind of a little bit of the inspiration and impetus for the story. Specifically the character, but like from the beginning, it's kind of like I kind of wanted to write something for her, something about found family, something about adoption, something about finding friends that are, different like you, that
Hmm.
kind of that that's something that's always been important to me, but that to be able to kind of really be able to express it and then go, and someday I'll get to leave this to you for you.
Yeah,
For this particular story was very important to me.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so yes, George Cambadeas is an amazing artist, and he did the first two issues of Night Care,
Hmm.
and um, just absolutely killed it. Like he created a world, and I love it. And someday I hope to be in the same room as him. He lives in Greece. I've never met him. We connected online, and he has gone on to do Gargoyles and Dungeons and Dragons and um, several other books that I'm just like, John Carter of Mars, these books that I'm like, those are books I would love to be on, but and he's getting
Hmm.
to draw those. And so actually he drew the first two, but Kyle Petchcock has come on to
Oh,
do
nice,
issues
nice.
three and four. So there is
Cool.
there is going to be an art style difference that you will see, but Kyle absolutely killed it. Like when I found out George was basically too busy to kind of come back, I was really worried because, in my estimation, George left huge, huge shoes. I'm like, who's going to be able to fill this? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know how about this, guys. Do we cancel Night Care? What do we do? Um, but my friend Charlie McElvey, who's kind of is kind of the producer. He's the head of our studio. He found Kyle and was like, "No, I think you guys would get along." And Kyle crushed it, and it was really
Nice.
neat to see him kind of step into this world. And on one hand, definitely pay tribute to everything George created visually, but then also it has his very distinct spin on it. And at this point, I'm looking at issue three, and I can't imagine anybody else having drawn it. I'm like, well, of course Kyle drew this. No one else could have.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
George would have been fun to work with, but I'm so happy that Kyle's here, and he's going to be with us for the fourth issue. So you'll have two artists. We kind of cut in half there. Issues three and four with Kyle. Issues one and two with George. But
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
George was a lot of fun to work with too.
Cool, cool. Well, I think I have one more official question that's on the list, and we can hit anything that we've missed as well, of course. And I always like to ask where people
Sure.
can connect, if it's in person, online, spaces where they can go to check out the
Mhm.
books and meet you.
Yeah, so probably the easiest thing to do to find me online is just to Google Scott Fogg.
Hmm.
Scott, standard spelling, Fogg, Fogg. I'm on most of the social medias, and all of my social medias, I've been very specific about. I have a link tree in my bio for everything. So if you find me on Twitter and you want to connect with me somewhere else, or on Instagram or Blue Sky or Facebook or TikTok, I've got links to all the rest of them so that you can find me that way. Also, links um, the the website that has our comic and everything else. If you are in the Chattanooga area, in Tennessee, near Atlanta, or anywhere like that, I am the manager of a comic book store here, Epicos Comics, Cards, and Games,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you're always welcome to swing by the store. I am there Sunday through Thursday, basically 9 to 5, and always happy to have someone come by. I've had several people kind of swing by and surprise me, going, "Oh, we found you!" And I was like, "Oh, wow! I didn't know people were looking for me. That's really awesome." And that's really neat. And then I am trying to get better about attending conventions. I always hit Heroes Con. Later this month, at the end of October, I will be at Chattanooga Comic Con, which is one of our new homegrown conventions. I'll be there, and then on the books. That's the last convention I'm on or at this year, but I'm always open to really kind of anything. Like I've been invited to schools to come speak, or come to the library, or come to this other bookstore just to sit and talk and do stuff. So like I am always very up for meeting up with people in really kind of any capacity.
That's nice. Well, as I mentioned, I have lots of friends in the area where you are, so I'm sure at some point I will be making it a destination spot. And as I also mentioned, I'm sure I'll run into you at Heroes Con as well because it's a go-to space for me. So, Scott,
Absolutely.
glad to have you on. Glad to have you back anytime. Thanks for coming for a second visit, and we will have to make it a trifecta at some point.